Clara Ocean shook her head and turned to continue walking toward the city gate. At that moment, a cheerful voice came from a distant tree. Haha, little girl, you're quite amusing. Interested in becoming friends with this big brother? Without even turning her head, Clara Ocean casually threw the stick in her hand backward, aiming straight for the source of the voice. Her target was the man's nose, and she spoke in a playful tone, trying to lure kids. You're a bad guy. Ryan Knight initially thought the stick would be easy to block and didn't take it seriously. After all, there was a 3-realm gap between them, and the other party was just a little girl. However, before he could even maintain his cool demeanor for 3 seconds, he heard a loud thud. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hiss. These 3 sounds were enough to confirm the stick had hit its target. Ryan Knight really wanted to say, whose child is this? So unruly, throwing trash everywhere. That was a weapon, okay? My handsome face. When he regained his composure and searched for the culprit, the little girl had already skipped joyfully into Thousand Epic City. Thousand Epic City was considered a relatively large stronghold near Heavenly Marshall Mountain. Ryan Knight watched the lively little girl hopping along and, with a mindset of enjoying the spectacle, followed her into Thousand Epic City. At the city gate, Clara Ocean was stopped by a few guards. The 2 gatekeepers exchanged glances, and the rough-looking one said, "Little girl, are you planning to enter the city? To enter, you need to register your name, background, and cultivation level. You also need to pay 1 low-grade spirit stone." His tone sounded as if he were coaxing a child. Clara Ocean, still pretending to be an innocent little bunny, asked, "Are you trying to rob a child too?" The 2 guards exchanged silent looks again before the rough-looking one continued, "We're guards, everyone has to register." At this moment, a man behind Clara Ocean spoke up, "Little sister, it's true. Isn't this the same in other cities?" Clara Ocean tilted her head in thought, then suddenly seemed enlightened and said, "It seems so. My name is Clara Ocean, a descendant of the Keys family from Dream River Mountain, traveling for leisure." The rough-looking man chuckled, "Little girl, are you confusing leisure travel with sightseeing?" Clara Ocean nodded earnestly with a serious expression and handed over the spirit stone without a care. The 2 guards fell silent. Clara Ocean looked at the card handed to her and was momentarily speechless. On the card, it read, Clara Ocean, female, juvenile, origin, Dream River Mountain, the Keys family, cultivation, Chi refining stage, level 8. After entering the city and seeing the houses densely packed together, Clara Ocean felt a bit disoriented. She hated cities the most, every street looked the same to her. Her eyes filled with doubt as she wondered if the city builders weren't afraid of getting lost. Seeing her confused demeanor, the group following her burst into laughter, losing all composure. Hearing the familiar laughter, Clara Ocean didn't even bother to turn around. She casually kicked a stone behind her, which hit Ryan Knight's leg squarely. She then heard an exaggerated, "Ouch, ouch, ouch." Clara Ocean snickered, ignoring it. She turned around, placed her left index finger over her left eye, stuck out her tongue to make a face, and then spun around to run off. She hadn't taken 2 steps when a familiar voice called out from behind, "Miss Hu, you've arrived." Clara Ocean turned back in confusion, only to see the person she had been looking for, Simon Lee. This time, he seemed to be up to his old tricks again, but the people with him were clearly of a higher caliber. Looking at him, she noted that he appeared much more polished than before, likely not short on spirit stones. Clara Ocean, annoyed, smacked his forehead and grumbled, "I told you, don't you dare lack ambition. You've run this far, and you're still leading people around sightseeing in cities. Are they exploiting you?" Simon Lee quickly waved his hands and chuckled awkwardly, No, they wouldn't dare exploit me. It's just that I've given all the resources to my younger sister. I was only able to reach the foundation establishment stage thanks to your help. My talent is limited, trying to cultivate further would just waste resources. I don't expect to break through to the golden core stage. With nothing better to do, I've gone back to my old trade to earn a little extra. Hashtag chapter 31, the 31st chapter. The bootlicker of liquor Clara Ocean pursed her lips, helplessly holding her head, and said disdainfully, truly someone with no ambition. That amount of medicinal herbs is enough to make 2 golden cores when piled up, isn't it? Simon Lee shamelessly grinned and replied, that's why I'm counting on you. Hearing this, Clara Ocean clenched her fists, really wanting to punch him. Seeing her face darken, Simon Lee awkwardly smiled and went off to prepare accommodations. Clara Ocean mentioned she wanted to stay here long-term and conveniently find a spot to set up a stall for selling goods. Assigning these tasks to Simon Lee would naturally get them done quickly since he had been leading her around for a while. Looking at Simon Lee, Clara Ocean asked suspiciously, do you know how to drink? Simon Lee beamed and nodded, a little. Clara Ocean, excited, said, later, I'll give you a jar of wine, enough for you to drink until you reach golden core. Remember to sip it slowly. Also, don't you dare be stingy and sell it off. This wine wasn't easy to get, I had to risk my life for over a year to earn it. Simon Lee agreed with a nod, but deep down, he thought differently. If Clara Ocean had to risk her life for a whole year to get it, this wine must be extraordinarily precious. When they arrived at the room of Simon Lee's younger siblings, Clara Ocean twitched the corner of her mouth. Dissatisfied, she asked, out of money already? Why are you staying in such a shabby place? How much have they been exploiting you too? Simon Lee's younger sister, Sophia Lee, pouted and angrily complained to Clara Ocean, sister, don't even mention it. My brother is so stingy he could die. Except for pills for me, he scrimps on everything else. He bought the cheapest house, spends minimally on food and clothing, and if he could, he'd probably make me live off fasting pills. She even teared up as she looked at Clara Ocean. Clara Ocean shook her head, truly underestimating Simon Lee's level of stinginess. She glared at Sophia Lee and said irritably, you're stronger than him, beat him up. Take his stuff. Sophia Lee pouted, rolled her eyes, and reluctantly said, actually, my brother works really hard to earn money, all for me to cultivate better. Being well prepared ensures survival. Clara Ocean, slightly annoyed, asked Sophia Lee, whose side are you on, sister? Sophia Lee stuck out her tongue, casually pulling Simon Lee in front of her as a shield. Simon Lee knew Clara Ocean was a glutton, so there was no need for much persuasion. They decided to head to the most famous restaurant in town, Transcendence Residence, for a hearty meal. Now that the girl had arrived, there was no need to worry about stockpiling anymore. What he needed to consider next was whether spirit stones could ever be so abundant that they couldn't be spent. The 3 of them swaggered into Transcendence Residence. Naturally, the waiter greeted them warmly. Simon Lee chose a relatively quiet spot and, with familiarity, said to the waiter, brother waiter, our table will have all meat dishes. Bring out 10 or so plates first, and we'll order more if needed. As for drinks, we brought our own. The waiter, slightly dissatisfied, said, Simon Lee, we don't allow inferior wine to be consumed here. In the eyes of those in Thousand Epic City, Simon Lee was just a foundation establishment cultivator working odd jobs, so he naturally didn't command much respect. Clara Ocean, annoyed, shot Simon Lee a glare, released her pressure, and said irritably, 3 cups of wine. Simon Lee noticed Clara Ocean seemed a little impatient, so he said to the waiter, all right, hurry up. My sister has a bad temper. Later, when we drink, don't come to bother us. If there's anything, wait until the girl comes back, and we'll discuss it then. The waiter clicked his tongue, turned around, and slowly started preparing. Simon Lee, being shrewd, slipped 2 low-grade spirit stones into the waiter's hand and instructed, please hurry up, and make sure the dishes are plentiful and of good quality. Don't bring anything subpar. Hearing this, the waiter smiled but cautiously added, then I'll serve 10 of the best dishes, but the price will be much higher. Simon Lee nodded in agreement. Clara Ocean looked at Simon Lee helplessly, and he awkwardly chuckled, "Hee, we don't usually come here to eat." Clara Ocean grumbled, "Exactly, your sister is about to accuse you of feeding her Valley Retreat pill." Soon, 3 cups of wine were brought to the table. Clara Ocean pulled out a jar of monkey wine, and Simon Lee, understanding the situation, poured the wine himself, filling each cup. Clara Ocean declared, "No more talking, let's drink to our heart's content today." The waiter, who had been standing nearby watching, sniffed the air, his eyes lighting up. It turned out to be the renowned monkey wine, a drink so exquisite that it was worth its weight in gold. He was about to say something but stopped as Simon Lee signaled to him, reminding him of the earlier instruction to wait until the meal was over before speaking. Just as they had each taken a sip, a pleasant voice chimed in from the side, "Hey, girl, you've hit me so many times. How about treating me to a drink?" Clara Ocean replied irritably, "Didn't you just trick old monkey into giving you a jar of wine? Why are you here to mooch off us?" It was Ryan Knight who had followed them. He pitifully said, "I worked hard for months to get that jar for you, but I had to offer it to my master. Little friend, you should be generous. Come on, let's drink together." As he spoke, he casually grabbed a cup and poured himself some wine without hesitation. Clara Ocean angrily snatched the jar of wine, stealing wine from a child, how shameless. Simon Lee and his sister could only sit silently between them, watching the two argue over the jar, utterly speechless. Ryan Knight continued to look pitifully at Clara Ocean and the other two. However, the two completely ignored the so-called expert. Having no other choice, Ryan Knight, who had essentially come to mooch as well, found that his masterly demeanor had long been discarded. Seeing that playing the pitiful card wasn't working, Ryan Knight switched to a stern expression and said, "Children shouldn't drink alcohol." Clara Ocean tilted her head, thought for a moment, and replied, "In my family, there's no such rule. We can drink. My grandfather and uncle allow it, and as for the rest of the clan, who cares?" Ryan Knight's mouth twitched. What kind of family was this, encouraging a child to drink? Clara Ocean smirked mischievously, "No cup, no bowl, no invitation." Clara Ocean clearly held no goodwill toward this man. Ever since leaving the monkey clan, he had been lurking around her, giving off an ominous vibe. Clara Ocean began contemplating whether she should hire someone to get rid of this nuisance. Ryan Knight coldly glanced at the waiter, who immediately trembled and brought over a cup of wine. After all, this was a nascent soul ancestor. Sensing the tension at the table, the waiter quickly retreated to the kitchen to hurry up the dishes. Within minutes, the 10 dishes were brought to Clara Ocean's table. Due to the pressure Ryan Knight had just released from his nascent soul stage, Simon Lee and his sister dared not make a sound. Clara Ocean, dissatisfied, smacked Ryan Knight on the head and said, "Hey, hey, hey, you're just tagging along, aren't you? If you keep scaring people, get lost." Feeling wronged, Ryan Knight took a deep breath, withdrew his spiritual pressure, and the surrounding atmosphere immediately became more harmonious. Looking at the table full of meat dishes, Ryan Knight tactfully ordered a few vegetarian dishes. The waiter, still trembling, quickly served them. Seeing Clara Ocean eating heartily, Ryan Knight intended to pick a piece for her, but before he could extend his chopsticks, Simon Lee smacked the back of his hand. Noticing Ryan Knight's slightly angry expression, Simon Lee winked and whispered, "Fighting over food with her is very dangerous. Here's some advice, if you want to drink for free, forget about the meat. Either wait for the vegetarian dishes or don't even think about touching the meat." Ryan Knight's face darkened. The waiter promptly brought out the vegetarian dishes and placed them before the 3 of them. They ate and drank on their own. Clara Ocean, who had only been eating meat and not drinking, looked at them longingly, shaking the wine jug, only to find it empty. It turned out that the entire jug had been consumed by the freeloading Ryan Knight. She shot a disdainful glance at Simon Lee and his sister. Simon Lee recalled Clara Ocean's warning not to let anyone else drink her wine, which could help him cultivate to golden core and his sister to nascent soul. Such a valuable resource naturally couldn't be shared with others. After scanning the area, Clara Ocean casually took out another wine jug, placed it on the table, and put the empty one away. These jugs could still be exchanged for wine from Old Monkey. Wasting resources was out of the question. Thus, after finishing the second jug, Clara Ocean and the others realized they might have invited the wrong person, a drunkard, to be precise. Watching Ryan Knight's smug expression, Clara Ocean grew furious. This man was a fraud, a complete scammer. Seeing Clara Ocean gritting her teeth, Ryan Knight found her amusing. What puzzled him was why this girl was glaring at him so fiercely. Sensing that the young lady was about to erupt, Simon Lee quickly nudged Ryan Knight and said, "If you don't pay the bill and leave now, losing your life over a jug of wine isn't worth it." As a senior in the cultivation world, Ryan Knight also felt that paying the bill now was the wiser choice. His instincts told him that if he truly angered this little wildcat, the consequences would be dire. Even as a nascent soul elder, he felt a bit apprehensive. If Clara Ocean knew what Ryan Knight was thinking, she would have angrily retorted, "I'm not a cat, I'm a fox." Ryan Knight, moving at lightning speed, called the waiter to settle the bill and hurriedly left. At that moment, Clara Ocean's voice rang out behind him for everyone to hear, "This old man has no chivalry at all. Eating and running, did you even consider the feelings of your host?" Ryan Knight stumbled and nearly fell flat on his face. Feeling aggrieved, Ryan Knight thought to himself, "Throughout the entire heavenly Marshall Mountain, it's rare for anyone to speak to me like this. After all, I am a nascent soul elder. Can't I get a bit of respect?" Then again, Clara Ocean was never known for giving face to anyone. If she did, where would her title as the Mad Fox Alchemist come from? The truth was, Clara Ocean nagged Ryan Knight for 3 full hours before finally letting him go, still with a dissatisfied expression. Back at Simon Lee's house, Clara Ocean handed Simon Lee a gourd of wine and said, "I know you'll give it all to your sister, but don't worry, drink it yourself. I have plenty. Don't be stingy, it's embarrassing." Chapter 32, The 32nd Return. The wine thief Simon Lee repeatedly nodded and agreed, but in his heart, he still decided to prioritize his sister. As for himself, there would be more opportunities in the future, there was no need to rush. Seeing Simon Lee's expression, Clara Ocean immediately guessed his thoughts. Clara Ocean reluctantly said, "Do as you wish. Tomorrow morning, investigate a few things for me. First, find out who that freeloader was today. He's been following me all day. If he has any ill intentions, I'll deal with him first. Second, investigate the price of monkey wine in spirit stones. Third, go outside the city and find the fox messenger. Tell the Lake clan to send someone to meet me." Simon Lee nodded, turned, and left to handle the tasks Clara Ocean had assigned. First, he delivered the wine to Sophia Lee, then conveniently asked his younger sister to go outside the city to relay a message to someone from the Demon Clan. This task was relatively safe and suitable for someone like his sister, who wasn't skilled at socializing. As for him, he went to the market management office, rented a high-end house, and also rented a stall, putting up a signboard. Afterward, he headed to the Transcendence residence to inquire about the freeloader. Upon hearing the name, True Jade Master, Simon Lee immediately understood who the person was. Simon Lee didn't bother the waiter too much. Generously tipping him 2 spirit stones, Simon continued to ask, "Brother waiter, your information has been very helpful to us. Let me share something with you in return. Tomorrow, at stall number 135, there will be monkey wine for sale, just a few jars though. My younger sister is also in charge of refining pills, so selling wine will depend on her mood. If she decides to sell, you're welcome to check it out when you're free." The waiter was deeply grateful and happily bid farewell to Simon Lee. Simon had also inquired about the price of monkey wine, but to be sure, he circled Thousand Epic City a few times, analyzing and comparing the prices. What puzzled Clara Ocean was how Sophia Lee had trained Simon Lee so well. As soon as he returned, he immediately began cultivating, wasting no time. How diligent must one be to achieve that level of discipline? The next morning, Simon Lee respectfully escorted Clara Ocean to the stall. Surprisingly, the waiter was second in line, while the first spot was occupied by none other than Ryan Knight, the freeloader from yesterday. Clara Ocean asked in confusion, "What's going on? Why is the freeloader here again?" The waiter grumbled, "He's been lining up here since yesterday, which is why I could only get the second spot." Ryan Knight flipped over lazily, propping his head with one hand while waving the other dismissively. No, it's not freeloading. It's unpaid drinking. Today, I'm here to buy wine. Clara Ocean walked behind the stall, casually grabbed an iron rod, and jabbed it straight at Ryan Knight's rear. A piercing scream tore through the air, "Ouch! That hurts, that hurts, that hurts." Gasping for breath, Ryan Knight angrily shouted, "You little girl, that's too cruel. I'm paying spirit stones this time. Why are you still hitting me?" Clara Ocean sneered, "Who told you to take my spot? Serves you right." Dark spots seemed to hover above Ryan Knight's head as he was utterly speechless. The people behind him wanted to laugh but didn't dare, suppressing their amusement quietly. At that moment, hearty laughter echoed from behind the crowd. Oh. Seeing my strange disciple embarrassed like this is truly rare. A scruffy middle-aged man laughed as he turned to Clara Ocean and said, "Little girl, you suit this old drunkard's taste. Interested in becoming my grand disciple?" Clara Ocean glanced at Simon Lee and asked, "Who is this crazy old man? Are the people here all fond of tricking children? People here are so devious." The old drunkard didn't mind that. All, laughing even louder. Simon Lee rolled his eyes and whispered to Clara Ocean, "This must be the gourd sage of the mountain. I've heard he's a powerful deity with divine abilities." Clara Ocean shot Simon Lee a disdainful glance before saying, "If you don't know anything, just keep quiet. This old drunkard has already reached the fusion stage in one step." How embarrassing. Simon Lee was left dumbfounded. The gourd sage was also taken aback but chuckled and said, "Young lady, I didn't expect I misjudged you. What's your cultivation level?" Clara Ocean coldly replied with 4 words, "None of your business." Gourd Immortal felt extremely embarrassed, muttering under his breath, "Whose child is this?" Such sharp words. Behind him, Ryan Knight laughed heartily, unafraid of the consequences. After all, he wasn't the only one who had suffered losses at the hands of this young girl, and that alone made him feel satisfied. Clara Ocean signaled Simon Lee with her eyes. Simon Lee glanced at the 2 great figures with a look of sympathy before tactfully spreading out a tablecloth, preparing for business. Yesterday, Simon Lee had learned that the price of monkey wine ranged from 80,000 to 150,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Clara Ocean quickly set the price at 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones. The sign was updated to read, "Monkey wine, 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones, golden core stage or below, 10 pills per batch of ingredients, nascent soul stage or above, 5 pills per batch of ingredients, soul formation stage or above, 1 pill per batch, maximum of 4 batches, no recipe, no discussion." Gourd Immortal looked around disdainfully and sneered, "Young girl, you really dare to boast." This time, Simon Lee was displeased and angrily retorted, "Old man, why don't you go to Falling Blossom City and ask around? My master is a famous alchemist known far and wide. As for the monkey wine, your disciple already freeloaded 2 jars from us yesterday. Just ask him." Gourd Immortal shot an angry glare at Ryan Knight before pulling out various medicinal herbs from who knows where, laying them on the table, and asking, "Well then, what can you refine from these?" Clara Ocean tapped the signboard impatiently and said, can't you read? The recipe. She then began examining the herbs while commenting, by the way, let me give you a heads up. This one here, its spiritual energy is almost depleted. This one, you've been scammed. And this herb is poisonous, it's inedible. Based on the herbs you've provided, I can refine anything you want, but it'll all just be poison that no one can consume. Gourd Immortal felt humiliated. As a soul formation stage cultivator at the peak of his powers, this was a significant blow to his pride. He picked up the herb Clara had identified as poisonous and asked, take another look. Isn't this clear wisdom grass? Clara Ocean covered her eyes and sighed, Uncle, that's forget worry grass. Clear wisdom grass has transparent veins and heart-shaped leaves. Your herb's veins are slightly red. Consuming clear wisdom grass calms the mind, but eating forget worry grass will turn you into a fool. Everyone fell silent for a moment. Gourd Immortal, furious, grabbed the herb and stormed off, presumably to confront someone. Meanwhile, Clara Ocean calmly placed jars of wine on the table. Gourd Immortal, who had just been fuming and ready to leave, suddenly sniffed the air and, in a flash, appeared in front of the table like a spear, his face full of flattery. Young girl, can you let me owe you a jar? Clara Ocean nearly exploded with rage. She angrily raised a stick and shouted, you two wine thieves. Get lost. She chased after the master and disciple duo, swinging the stick at them. Gourd Immortal put on a pitiful face, but Clara Ocean ignored him entirely and prepared to strike with her iron staff. Naturally, Gourd Immortal wasn't concerned about the staff, but he was infuriated by his two companions covering their eyes, and even his own disciple doing the same. As soon as he reached out to block, Clara Ocean swiftly changed her move, striking down at his lower body, followed by the familiar cries, ouch! Ouch! That hurts! Tisk! Then came the voice of Gourd Immortal, why did you hit me? Clara Ocean, hands on her hips, scolded, why didn't you mention that you bullied a child? Neither of us should give in to the other. And you even stole my wine, you old scoundrel. Behind them, except for Ryan Knight, no one dared to laugh, they could only hold it in. Gourd Immortal, realizing he strangely couldn't win, had to take a few deep breaths before saying, how much does it cost? Clara Ocean angrily knocked on the signboard. Gourd Immortal flattered her, could you lower the price a bit? Clara Ocean furiously picked up her stick again, her posture clearly saying, if you dare steal, I'll dare to hit. The shop assistant behind them couldn't hold back anymore and softly stepped forward, saying, Honorable One, how about we help you buy it? Perhaps Clara Ocean didn't know, but the shop assistants at Transcendence Residence certainly did. This Gourd Immortal, besides standing up for his people, had a deep love for wine. The old man with the gourd glared at the shop assistant and turned to Clara Ocean, saying, you already know I'm about to ascend to the fusion stage, yet you still dare not flatter me? Clara Ocean pouted disdainfully and muttered, I've beaten plenty of Tribulation Crossing cultivators before, you're nothing special. The old man with the gourd thought Clara Ocean was daydreaming in broad daylight. Much later, when recalling her words, he realized they weren't exaggerations, she really had defeated quite a few Tribulation Crossing immortals. Clara Ocean glared at him and boldly declared, if you don't have money, get lost. Don't think I'm running a charity. The old man with the gourd turned his head, pitifully looking at his disciple. Clara Ocean grew even more annoyed and said, what are you looking at? He's just another liar who cheats for food and drink. The old man with the gourd wiped his sweat. Why did their master-disciple reputation turn out so poor? Cheating children? For the first time, he fiercely glared at his disciple, wondering why they were accused of being swindlers and chased with a stick. Ryan Knight, feeling wronged, explained, including today, I've been hit by her 3 times already. I only freeloaded 1 meal's worth of wine, yet she calls me a swindler. I'm the one who paid for it. Simon Lee quietly interjected, we ordered 2 bottles of wine, and the food didn't cost much. If this is what freeloading looks like, I'd love to do it every day. Besides, she only drank a few cups, you drank most of the wine. She mainly ate the food. Ryan Knight looked embarrassed, but one comment from the old man with the gourd made everyone burst into laughter. You little rascal, if there's such a good deal, why didn't you call me? You're really something. With that, the old man with the gourd smacked Ryan Knight on the head like a drum. Clara Ocean finally lost her temper. It seemed these two didn't want her to run her business, did they? Clara Ocean slammed the table in anger and shouted, both of you, get out. I still have a business to run. With that, Clara Ocean decisively joined the fight, swinging her stick at their arms and legs. Before they could react, the two were already hopping around in pain. The two were eventually chased out of the city by Clara Ocean. This commotion had long attracted the attention of the city lord of Thousand Epic City. At present, a group of experts gathered around to watch. What puzzled everyone was that Clara Ocean didn't stop, instead, she became even more frenzied. Simon Lee suddenly felt a bit afraid. Chapter 33, The Tale of Two Boozers. Simon Lee knew that Clara Ocean was not an ordinary person. When fighting, she would go berserk. Clara Ocean's staff grew heavier and heavier, and the gourd immortal was astonished to find that he could barely withstand the pressure from this young girl's weapon. He could already feel bruises forming in several places on his body. Seeing his disciple Ryan Knight struggling to hold up, the gourd immortal considerately pulled him behind his back. Recalling what Clara Ocean had said earlier, that she could even fight tribulation crossing immortals when enraged, it seemed she wasn't exaggerating at all. Simon Lee hurriedly ran to the captain of the Thousand Epic City Guards, anxiously saying, "Quick, stop them immediately. If my master goes berserk, it'll be a huge problem." The captain of the guards looked a bit dumbfounded but, seeing Simon Lee's worried expression, hesitantly asked, "Can you briefly explain the situation?" Simon Lee, feeling somewhat helpless, explained, "This girl is a high-level alchemist, but due to a physical defect, whenever she fights, she easily enters a berserk state. Once she's in that state, it's a fight to the death, and after calming down, she suffers severe backlash." Clara Ocean was now in a semi-berserk state, with almost nothing left in her mind except the words, liar, and deceiver. At this point, the gourd immortal and Ryan Knight also realized something was off. Clara Ocean seemed to be in a state of madness, as if possessed. The gourd immortal acted decisively. He and Ryan Knight exchanged glances and charged toward Clara Ocean together. However, in her current state, Clara Ocean wasn't someone who could be easily subdued. After several attempts, the two barely managed to control the situation. What shocked them was that despite fighting with all their strength for a long time, they had gained no advantage. Seeing the situation spiraling further out of control, Simon Lee, with resolute determination, jumped into the fray. Before he could hesitate, Clara Ocean grabbed him by the neck. Just as everyone thought someone might lose their life, Clara Ocean suddenly sniffled, blinked her eyes, casually rubbed her nose with her index finger, and sneezed. She then looked at Simon Lee, who was still in her grasp, with a puzzled expression. After releasing him, Simon Lee let out a sigh of relief and, still shaken, said, "You," while pointing to his head. Clara Ocean grinned, scratched her head, and looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, pretending to be deep in thought. From her reaction, everyone could tell that this girl had no memory of what had just happened. Once Clara Ocean came to her senses, she angrily returned to her stall, packed up her wine, and sulkily prepared to go home. Still grumbling under her breath, Clara Ocean muttered, "Liars, a bunch of liars, scoundrels, you all look dirt poor." Everyone around could only choose to ignore her words. The most frustrated person at the moment was the waiter from Transcendence Residence, who had been inadvertently dragged into the chaos. Simon Lee leaned in and whispered to the waiter, "Once this girl calms down, I'll think of a way to help you, but as for the money." The waiter nodded knowingly and said, "Don't worry, I understand the rules. You'll definitely get your share. At this moment, the gourd immortal, unwilling to give up, tugged at Clara Ocean's sleeve with a pitiful expression and said, "Young lady, don't pack up yet. We've already taken a beating from you. Can't you let us owe you just one jar of wine?" Clara Ocean, furious, raised her staff and shouted, "Do you too want to die? If it weren't for Shaolin today, both of you would be dead. Don't provoke me, I kill but don't bury." With that, Clara Ocean stormed off in anger. Since she wasn't deliberately controlling her inner energy, her cultivation level fluctuated unstably between Golden Core and Foundation Establishment. This left everyone around astonished. Gourd Immortal and Ryan Knight assumed she was about to lose control in her cultivation. Furious, Clara Ocean dragged Simon Lee straight to the Transcendence residence. The attendant, noticing their destination, immediately sent a message to the owner, instructing them to prepare the dishes and warning that the guests were not in a good mood today. By the time Clara Ocean arrived at the Transcendence residence, the dishes were already prepared. The attendant welcomed them, but Clara Ocean, still fuming, took out 5 bottles of monkey wine and waved at Simon Lee. Simon Lee pulled the attendant aside to negotiate. "Brother attendant, the wine here sells for 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones per bottle, but let me advise you, inform your boss that under no circumstances should you sell to those 2 individuals earlier. If that girl finds out, you might not even have the chance to sell wine in the future." The attendant nodded and went to retrieve the spirit stones from the back. The shopkeeper of the Transcendence residence came out, beaming with gratitude. After enjoying a hearty meal, the young girl instructed Simon Lee to lead her out of the city. This was because a rat had approached her earlier, asking for food and informing her that her uncles were already outside the city. Clara Ocean pondered whether she should summon her uncles to teach this unreliable master-disciple pair a lesson. On the way, she tugged at Simon Lee's sleeve, weighing the consequences of revenge. After careful consideration, Clara Ocean shook her head and decided to let them off this time, avoiding conflict for now. The demon clan had recently clashed with the human clan. If she continually sought revenge on behalf of her clan, not only would she face numerous troubles, but even the powerful figures of the demon clan might encounter issues. The smaller demons below the Golden Core stage would undoubtedly suffer greatly. Their days would become difficult, and with this in mind, she decisively abandoned her thoughts of revenge. As Clara Ocean contemplated, an irritating voice interrupted her thoughts. "Hey, little girl, you have so much wine. Why not gift this old man a jar?" Clara Ocean ignored the old drunkard, starting to suspect that the reason he was called Gourd Immortal was because he always carried a wine gourd around. In truth, it was precisely because this old man always kept the gourd by his side that he earned the name Gourd Immortal. His obsession with alcohol was beyond the understanding of a young girl like Clara Ocean. For him, drinking was more important than cultivating. Clara Ocean, annoyed, swung her iron staff again, this time aiming directly at their heads. These two were truly insufferable. And so, at the city gate, where a crowd had gathered to watch the commotion, Eighth Uncle saw his niece, iron staff in hand, chasing after 2 fleeing figures. Eighth Uncle, puzzled, asked, "Little girl, need help?" Clara Ocean paid him no mind and proved with her actions that these 2 were no match for her. Just as Eighth Uncle finished speaking, Clara Ocean struck Gourd Immortal down with a single blow. Ryan Knight hurriedly rushed to care for his master, not daring to bother Clara Ocean any further. Outside the city, within a 100-mile radius, no beasts remained. They had all fled far away, terrified by Eighth Uncle's aura. Clara Ocean sniffed the air and headed toward Eighth Uncle. Suddenly, she was pulled into the bushes, and Eighth Uncle's voice rang out, "Little girl, what's going on?" Clara Ocean angrily scolded, "Ugh, worthless fools. Just think of them as 2 people who don't value their lives." Seeing Clara Ocean's fury, Eighth Uncle grew angry as well and asked, "Enemies?" Clara Ocean gritted her teeth and replied, 2 scoundrels who tricked me for wine. Eighth uncle noticed Clara Ocean's unusual demeanor and whispered, "Shall we eliminate them?" Clara Ocean lightly patted eighth uncle's head and said, "Retreat. Why are you acting so arrogant? Can't you see something's off with me? I almost wiped out little Lin earlier because of those two infuriating people." Recalling Clara Ocean's earlier frenzy, eighth uncle couldn't help but shiver. Using his fox tail, he scooped Clara Ocean onto his back and quickly ran away. A frenzied young one was a critical matter for the demon clan. It could lead to death. With eighth uncle's speed, no one could catch up. He ran at full force, and within an hour, Clara Ocean was brought back to the Lake clan. As soon as they reached the entrance, eighth uncle urgently shouted, "Father, something's wrong. The girl is about to mutate again. Everyone, come help." Hearing this, all the surrounding nine-tailed foxes immediately rushed to Clara Ocean's side. At this moment, Clara Ocean kept slapping eighth uncle's head, expressing her strong disapproval. When a group of demon foxes surrounded her, they could feel her aura fluctuating violently. The nine-tailed foxes dared not delay and immediately worked to stabilize her aura. After about an hour, Clara Ocean's aura finally calmed down. Henry Lake, now slightly angry, grabbed eighth uncle's ear and asked, "Who bullied the girl?" Eighth uncle rubbed his ear in annoyance and replied, "Two humans, one at the nascent soul stage and an old man nearing the integration stage. They seem to have tricked the girl into giving them her wine, which enraged her to the point of madness." Nicholas Wood interjected, "What kind of wine could make the girl so eager that she'd get this angry?" Clara Ocean angrily complained, "I went through so much trouble to snatch it from the monkey clan, planning to sell a few jars for some profit. But those two scoundrels followed me from the monkey clan, begging for wine. They had no money and shamelessly demanded to drink. I've beaten tribulation transcendence experts before, but these two were just asking for death. I had to chase them all over the city, and in the end, they still shamelessly demanded more wine. Ugh, so infuriating." As she spoke, Clara Ocean maliciously pretended to cry. Nicholas Wood immediately tried to comfort her, saying, "Don't be angry, don't be angry. Let eighth uncle go avenge you." Clara Ocean smacked Nicholas Wood on the head and declared, "No need. I want to deal with those two myself. I'll make sure they can't get any wine, ever. Let them see it, but never taste it. I'll give them poisoned wine, killing them wouldn't even be enough." The more Clara Ocean spoke, the angrier she became. She furiously smacked Nicholas Wood's head again and ordered, "Go tell that old monkey clan leader that if he dares to sell wine to Celestial Jade Master or Gourd Immortal again, I'll empty his entire wine cellar." Nicholas Wood glanced around, noticing all the fox spirits' eyes on him. With no other choice, he reluctantly went to deliver the message. When the monkey clan leader heard this, he silently shook his head. Those two drunkards, they should have known better. Of all people to provoke, they chose the one person they absolutely shouldn't. Without Felix Wind Alchemist speaking up, if the monkey clan leader dared to sell wine to those two again, not only the Lake clan but even Lord Eric King himself wouldn't let him off. When Nicholas Wood returned, Clara Ocean generously handed out 6 jars of wine to everyone, boldly declaring that there was more where that came from. Chapter 34, The 34th Return. Little Green Fox Henry Lake hesitantly asked, how much wine did you steal from them?" Nicholas Wood spoke passionately, "It seems like it robbed someone of 500 jars, making the old monkey work as a laborer for a year." Clara Ocean pretended to shed tears, expressing her protest. Clara Ocean counted on her fingers as she said, "I've already distributed a portion, but you all must not rob others anymore. Tomorrow, I'll leave behind 200 jars. Grandpa Fox, you'll be in charge of sharing them so everyone can drink slowly. The rest, I'll keep to drink gradually." The fox spirits fell silent for a moment. That evening, after feasting and drinking to their heart's content, Clara Ocean left behind 200 jars of monkey wine and a large pile of elixirs. She casually grabbed a fox spirit to act as her escort and returned to Thousand Epic City. Grandpa Fox intended for this fox spirit to stay by Clara Ocean's side to care for her, but Clara Ocean refused, feeling it would be disrespectful to her clan members, which might upset Mother Fox. Clara Ocean's reasoning for refusal was quite creative. If there's a contract, it must be with another clan, not with one's own clan members. What kind of skill is that? The Lake Clan spirits fell silent, wondering if this could be considered principled behavior. Leaving the Lake Clan, Clara Ocean was guided by the Fox spirit to the territory of the Wind bloodline, where she met Wind King Owen Lewis. Clara Ocean carefully negotiated with Owen Lewis regarding the rights to divide rare flowers and herbs. In the end, most of the rare flowers and herbs remained with the Wind bloodline, in exchange for some local flora from the area. Of course, Oscar Lewis also offered Owen Lewis a batch of premium honey that had been aged beforehand. After all, Clara Ocean was still young and hadn't paid much attention to beauty maintenance yet. She figured she had plenty of time to focus on it in 10 years. Departing from the Wind bloodline, Clara Ocean confidently rode the Fox spirit toward Thousand Epic City. They traveled leisurely, and along the way, they found a lost little green fox. Clara Ocean naturally treated the little green fox as a kindred spirit, assuming it too was lost. However, the little green fox was barely clinging to life, which intrigued Clara Ocean. She couldn't understand why the white fox escorting her seemed to look down on the little green fox. It was puzzling, very puzzling. Clara Ocean asked bluntly, "Hey, why do I feel like you're looking down on this little one?" As she spoke, she gently stroked the little green fox, continuously healing its injuries with white light. The white fox beneath her pursed its lips and said, "Little princess, since you didn't grow up in the Lake Clan, you wouldn't naturally understand this. The Lake Clan is divided into white foxes, fire foxes, and green foxes. White foxes and fire foxes are on the same side, while green foxes are less welcomed by us because they often have ambiguous relationships with subordinate tribes. Moreover, Green Fox Kingston currently has some improper intentions." Clara Ocean was stunned for a long moment before weakly asking, so are they enemies?" The fox spirit beneath her fell silent. After thinking for a bit, it said, "Not to the extent of being enemies. When I say enemies, I mean life and death adversaries. After all, they're still of the same clan, so it's not that serious. It's more of an internal clan conflict." Clara Ocean blinked and asked, "How many nine-tailed foxes does the Green Lake clan have?" The fox spirit replied, "None. Currently, only one 9-spirits pill has been given to the Green Lake clan, and it was likely used by Green Fox Kingston." Clara Ocean curiously continued, "Why not give them a few more pills? Is it because they'd pose a threat to the other 2 Lake Clan factions?" The fox spirit nodded seriously. Clara Ocean cheerfully asked again, "By the way, how old are all of you?" Clara Ocean spoke, her sparkling eyes gazing at the little fox demon in her hands, her expression expectant as she waited for him to call her big sister. The fox demon, sweating slightly, weakly replied, "Ahem, little princess, this little fox demon might be small in size, but he's much older than you. He's already over 50 years old." Hearing this, Clara Ocean immediately flung the little fox to the ground. She pointed at the fox, her wide eyes staring at the demon in disbelief. Ahem. Clara Ocean choked on her own saliva, coughing uncontrollably. With a shocked expression, she looked at the demon and weakly asked, "Then how old are you?" The fox demon turned around, his tail swaying, and replied, "I am 3 tails, and this year, I am 3,873 years old." Clara Ocean pretended to faint. Glancing around, she added, "Then what about my uncles and grandfather?" The fox demon cautiously answered, "Your oldest uncle is 18,000 years old, while the youngest, the 8th prince, is over 10,000 years old. As for Henry Lake, he's over 30,000 years old this year." Clara Ocean's jaw dropped, her face filled with disbelief. Clenching her teeth for a long while, Clara Ocean finally weakly asked, what about my mother? The fox demon's face immediately lit up with pride as he said, the princess is only 7,000 years old this year. She is undoubtedly the most talented member of the Lake clan. Of course, compared to you, the princess is still slightly inferior. Clara Ocean swallowed hard, her expression somewhat downcast. It seemed her dream of being a big sister in the demon clan had completely shattered. Even newborn demons were likely much older than her. The little fox beside her chuckled, watching the princess with her mouth agape and a silly expression. Just as he was about to laugh out loud, the older fox demon smacked him on the forehead. Glaring at the little fox with a fierce look, his expression seemed to say, "Do you want to die?" The little fox stuck out his tongue and obediently pretended to be cute. Clara Ocean looked on, satisfied. After thinking for a moment, Clara Ocean weakly asked, the Lake clan determines age based on tails, right? With that, she tugged at the tail of the little green fox, saying, he's only at the chi refining stage. The tail of the little green fox was clearly in pain, and he cried out in protest. Meanwhile, the fox demon nodded, his expression as if to say, little princess, you are truly intelligent. Clara Ocean casually tossed the little green fox a bottle of spirit-gathering pills, gently patting his head. Kid, you'd better keep working hard. You're too weak. The little green fox buried his head in his paws, looking utterly ashamed. Being belittled by a half-demon, he felt utterly humiliated. However, for the sake of the pills, he pretended to be cute. Once the princess left, he leisurely retrieved the pills. This low-grade elixir was unlikely to interest the Golden Core Elder, so he would keep it for himself. As they journeyed onward, they soon approached Thousand Epoch City. After bidding farewell to the two fox demons, Clara Ocean casually rewarded the older fox demon with 2 bottles of Golden Core pills. She then advised, you're already at the Golden Core stage, so don't go snatching pills from others. That little one has it tough. Tell Grandpa Fox to preserve what he can, after all, I didn't save you for nothing. The fox demon nodded and left with the little green fox, heading back to their clan. Clara Ocean walked straight ahead and quickly entered Sky Monkey City. However, as soon as she stepped into the city, she felt frustrated. She didn't know where her house was or which way to go. While she was lost in thought, Simon Lee lazily said, Sister, I'll call you sister, but do you really not know the way? Come on, follow me. At that moment, Simon Lee secretly grumbled to himself. Sigh, having such a sponsor makes earning spirit stones so easy. Every time they go out, he ends up as a porter. Seeing Simon Lee shaking his head as he walked, Clara Ocean guessed what he was thinking, stuck her tongue out, and obediently tugged on Simon Lee's sleeve. As she followed him, she softly asked, how's the situation? Simon Lee, still lethargic, replied, over the past 2 days, we've received over a dozen batches of materials, one of which belongs to Gord Immortal, that old drunkard, to refine a fusion pill. Clara Ocean angrily said, don't refine it for him. Simon Lee's mouth twitched as he reminded her, maybe give him 1 pill, it'll show off your skills, won't it? Clara Ocean thought for a moment and agreed. The two of them continued walking, sharing a sly laugh. After a busy night, the pills were quickly refined. Gord Immortal's batch yielded just 1 pill, while the others received 10 each. Gord Immortal took one look and immediately knew the little girl still bore a grudge. Gord Immortal, dissatisfied, asked Simon Lee, why is mine so few? Simon Lee naturally replied, the master originally didn't want to take on your request. Now that she's agreed to refine it for you, even giving you 1 pill is a favor. If you keep provoking her and end up on her bad side, there's nothing I can do. The two experts looked at Simon Lee, speechless. Simon Lee thought for a moment and added, oh, by the way, the master said there's no point in giving you more. Each person can only take 1 pill, and taking more won't have any effect. The rest are kept back. Let me give you some advice. Of all the people you could offend, don't offend an alchemist, it's not worth it. Ryan Knight didn't care much about this and eagerly asked, aren't you selling wine? Simon Lee slapped his forehead and said, that's just a way to attract customers. Thanks to you all, not a single jar has been sold. She kept them all for herself to drink. Seeing that the dishes at Transcendence residence were good, the master reluctantly sold them a few jars at a high price. As for those hated by you all, they can forget about ever tasting monkey wine again. Oh, and the master said the monkey clan doesn't need to come anymore, they won't sell you even a drop of wine. After all, they have to flatter the master, an alchemist. At first, the two showed no signs of dissatisfaction. But when they heard, you'll never taste monkey wine again in your lifetime, they looked at Simon Lee in disappointment. Both immediately became dejected. Ryan Knight was better off, he wasn't addicted to alcohol. But Gord Immortal, who was practically addicted to alcohol, couldn't stand the idea of never drinking again. His mind immediately started working. He smiled at Simon Lee and said, young man, if you can gift me 2 jars of fine wine, I'll have my top disciple take you as his apprentice. How about that? Seeing Simon Lee's displeased expression, he pointed to Ryan Knight and added, he's my final disciple, the last one. I can only ask my disciple to take you in. Simon Lee's eyes lit up instantly. He knew that the Heavenly Epic sect on Heavenly Marshall Mountain was considered a great sect within the entire Righteous Alliance. It had hermits at the Tribulation Transcendence stage, reclusive cultivators at the Great Ascension stage, and countless fusion stage ancestors. If he could join such a sect, it would naturally be the dream of any cultivator. Unfortunately, Simon Lee knew that Clara Ocean was not backed by any human cultivator sect but by the Demon Clan. Though she wasn't a demon emperor, she was still a figure of immense authority. He was absolutely certain that if he said anything wrong here, he wouldn't make it home alive. Chapter 35, Simon Lee becomes a disciple. Simon Lee firmly said, forgive me, I know you have shown me kindness, but without the master's consent, I dare not accept it. Otherwise, my life would be hard to preserve. Based on what Simon Lee had learned over the years, the Heavenly Epic sect had 3 Tribulation stage ancestors, 5 Great Ascension stage ancestors, most of whom rarely appeared in battle. There were 11 Body Integration stage ancestors and 30 Nascent Soul stage ancestors. It was a truly remarkable sect. Moreover, the Gord Immortal lineage was considered the most peculiar branch within the Heavenly Epic sect, with every individual being a talent, each one an elite. It was no exaggeration to say that they were all extraordinary talents like Clara Ocean. If his younger sister could join, it would be a great opportunity. Furthermore, 2 jars of wine were something he could afford. After a moment of contemplation, Simon Lee feigned difficulty and said, however, I will try to speak to the master, but even if it succeeds, we dare not hope to become your disciples. It would be enough if my younger sister could enter the Heavenly Epic sect. That would satisfy me. After appeasing the 2 old wine lovers, Simon Lee packed up his stall and left, thinking of ways to convince Clara Ocean to allow his younger sister to join the Heavenly Epic sect. He first went to Transcendence residence, bought several large bags of food, and then headed to Clara Ocean's house. Seeing Simon Lee's uneasy expression, Clara Ocean immediately asked, did those old wine lovers threaten you? Simon Lee rolled his eyes and said, not a threat, but a temptation, 2 jars of monkey wine in exchange for my younger sister joining the Heavenly Epic sect. Clara Ocean observed as Simon Lee rubbed his hands, seemingly pondering how to phrase his words. Clara Ocean chuckled and said, oh, don't you already have it in your hands? Simon Lee, a bit embarrassed, replied, we've sworn loyalty to you. Without your approval, even if we had 10 times the courage, we wouldn't dare agree. Clara Ocean stroked her chin and said, all right then, if you want, just bring Sophia there. After all, apart from cultivation, that girl isn't much use anyway. After speaking, Clara Ocean generously handed Simon Lee 2 more jars of wine and, after some thought, added, tell those old wine lovers that if they want medicinal wine, they'll have to win me over. Simon Lee felt deep pity for Gord Immortal. The unlucky days of those old wine lovers had arrived. The key issue was that his master was not a well-behaved person. This time, he could only smile wryly. When Simon Lee returned to Gord Immortal and his companion, he cautiously said, 2 jars of wine in exchange for my younger sister becoming your disciple. As he spoke, he pointed at Gord Immortal and generously presented 2 full jars of monkey wine. Gord Immortal's eyes lit up instantly, and just as he was about to grab them, Simon Lee's cold voice rang out, Honorable One, if you drink the wine but don't fulfill your promise, then don't expect to drink any wine again. Gord Immortal immediately turned his gaze toward Ryan Knight. Ryan Knight shook his head and said, I suggest we let senior sister adopt her. She would be more convenient to take care of the little girl. In truth, he was currently contemplating whether he should find a way to lure the little wine-selling girl into becoming his disciple. After all, she was an alchemist. If he succeeded, it would be a huge gain. Gord Immortal, observing his disciple's expression, immediately understood his ambition and looked at him with great anticipation. If his disciple could truly lure the little girl up the mountain, then he wouldn't have to worry about running out of wine in the future. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but purse his lips in excitement. Simon Lee, seeing their expressions, felt immense disdain for these 2 unreliable men. At this point, he truly wanted to know whether bringing his sister into the Heavenly Epic sect was a right or wrong decision. Thinking of his sister drunkenly sprawled on the ground, Simon Lee decisively put the wine away, his eyes full of vigilance as he glared at the 2 untrustworthy men. Ryan Knight sighed helplessly, this old man is seriously addicted to wine. Simon Lee retorted angrily, you're not much better yourself. The 2 men fell into silence. Ryan Knight asked suspiciously, Kid, didn't we already agree on this? Simon Lee replied warily, with how unreliable you 2 are, I've thought it through. I don't want my sister to be drunk and lying in the streets every day. The 2 men remained silent, as this excuse hit the mark perfectly, leaving them feeling unjustly blamed. Seeing that the wine was about to slip from his grasp, Gord Immortal quickly sent out a communication talisman and politely said, Hey, don't be so tense. I'll call my 3rd disciple over. If you find him suitable, then let the little girl become his disciple. How about that? I promise the old man won't bully anyone, okay? Simon Lee, still cautious, also sent a voice transmission to his sister, instructing her to come over and ensure she was satisfied before accepting a master. Upon receiving her brother's message, Sophia Lee, without hesitation, followed his instructions and made her way to the room. Just as she was about to enter, a female cultivator also arrived on her flying sword and landed right beside her. The female cultivator, with an intrigued expression, looked at the girl beside her and asked with great interest, Little girl, your aptitude isn't bad. Are you interested in joining the Heavenly Epic sect? Sophia Lee, having already received her brother's communication talisman, knew that he seemed to want her to join the Heavenly Epic sect. Thus, she politely replied, Thank you for your kind offer, Senior. I do intend to join the Heavenly Epic sect. However, my brother has already found a master for me. The final decision depends on the outcome later. The female cultivator, intrigued, said, What a coincidence. My master sent me here to take in a disciple. Sophia Lee, being no fool, naturally understood the situation. The 2 of them walked hand in hand into the room. The 3 men inside were stunned. With the wine right in front of him, Gord Immortal's mind worked quickly. Seeing the 2 holding hands, he immediately grinned. Gord Immortal opened his mouth and said, Kid, look, they've already taken a liking to each other. Where's the wine? Where's the wine? The nun, upon hearing this, immediately refused, placing her hands on her hips and pointing straight at Gord Immortal's nose, asking, Old man, how dare you trade me for wine? Ryan Knight, completely lacking loyalty, said, "That's right, senior sister, you're only worth 2 jars of monkey wine." The nun instantly grabbed Gourd Immortal's ear, gritting her teeth as she said, "Master. Am I really only worth 2 jars of monkey wine?" Gourd Immortal pitifully replied, "Oh, little girl, have some sympathy for your master. Right now, I have no other way to get wine. 2 jars aren't a small amount, you know. Just bear with it a little. Besides, don't you also think this little girl isn't bad?" The nun turned to look at Sophia Lee, gritted her teeth, and angrily nodded. In a threatening tone, she said, "Fine, but I want double the resources for my disciple, and add 2 age-preserving pills." Gourd Immortal, overjoyed, agreed, all right, whatever you say." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look pitifully at Simon Lee. Simon Lee's face darkened, and he seriously told his younger sister, "Don't follow their example and drink wine. At the very least, don't drink like these two, who have no limits." Sophia Lee secretly smiled and nodded, while the nun's face turned completely black. The nun glared at Gourd Immortal and angrily asked Ryan Knight, "Junior brother, give me a reasonable explanation." Sophia Lee, laughing, explained, "They went to my master's sister's stall, racked up a wine debt, and nearly drove her crazy. My master's sister used medicinal pills to ensure the monkey clan would never let these two enter again. So, they decided to trade 2 jars of wine with my brother, agreeing to let him come and take me as a disciple. That's because my brother completely distrusts their drinking habits and doesn't want me to end up like them, drunk and lying in the streets every day." The nun fell silent upon hearing this, her sharp gaze fixed on the 2 unreliable men in the room. She coldly said, "Well done, you two have really brought glory to Heavenly Spirit Peak." Her voice rose by 8 octaves as she scolded, "Aren't you ashamed? If you can't afford it, don't drink. And to think you got chased away by a little girl." After saying this, she was a bit surprised and asked Sophia Lee, "Little girl, you said they were chased away by a little girl. What happened?" She gestured toward Gourd Immortal and Ryan Knight as she spoke. Sophia Lee glanced at her brother, and seeing Simon Lee nod in approval, she replied, "My master's sister didn't lose. She chased them out of the city." After speaking, she secretly laughed while looking at the 2 men across from her. The nun's voice rose sharply again, "Didn't lose. Chased them out of the city." She turned angrily to the 2 men and said, "Could you be any more disgraceful? You couldn't even handle a little girl." Ryan Knight, annoyed, rolled up his sleeves and said, "Look, we tried our best to run. That alchemist girl is crazy. If we hadn't used all our cultivation at the end, that kid over there would have been captured, and we might not have survived." The nun fell silent. After observing them for a while, the nun curiously asked, "Oh, why didn't you trick such a unique talent into joining us?" Ryan Knight laughed and said, "All right, I'll try to trick that little brat into coming up the mountain. This kind of rare and exotic herb must not be allowed to slip away." However, despite their ambitious plans, Simon Lee and his sister exchanged glances, pouting, and looked at the 2 men behind them with eyes full of pity. Ryan Knight had a bad feeling and asked, "What's with those expressions of yours?" Simon Lee twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "Well, your wish is very noble, but I'm worried about the future of the Heavenly Epic sect. Our master has never been one to reason for long. Are you sure you want to bring back something this dangerous?" Ryan Knight and the female cultivator both felt a bit bitter, but Gourd Immortal smugly said, "No problem, our Heavenly Spirit Peak specializes in collecting all kinds of rare and exotic herbs." The female cultivator, however, was not amused and directly smacked Gourd Immortal, her master, on the head. As a result, the 2 juniors silently watched as Gourd Immortal was chased around the room by his own disciple. Ryan Knight calmly ensured the 2 juniors wouldn't get caught up in the chaos, casually and irresponsibly saying, it's fine, you'll get used to it." The 2 juniors remained silent. Simon Lee weakly asked, "Sister, do you think these people are reliable?" Sophia Lee thought for a moment and replied, in terms of cultivation, they should be reliable, but in terms of daily habits, probably not. The two juniors silently nodded. The three people nearby froze for a moment and looked at Simon Lee and his sister with eyes full of grievance. Simon Lee ignored their reactions and continued to ask worriedly, "So, do you want to take them as your masters? If you don't, it's fine, honestly, I think they seem a bit unreliable." Chapter 36. The drunken immortal. Hearing the siblings discuss this, the female cultivator once again angrily smacked Gourd Immortal a few times before turning to Simon Lee with a kind expression and saying, "Young man, don't worry. I promise to properly teach your sister and won't let these people corrupt her." After a period of back and forth, things eventually returned to the original plan, and Sophia Lee became the disciple of the female cultivator. At this point, Simon Lee learned that the female cultivator's name was Monica Dream, the third disciple of Gourd Immortal. She specialized in illusions, charm techniques, and water-based magic. Monica Dream was currently an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, known in the Righteous Alliance as the Illusory Dream Fairy. Her mountain peak was called Water Spirit Peak. She was also the only female cultivator in the entire Heavenly Spirit Peak lineage, and now Sophia Lee had become the second. Although Simon Lee was somewhat dissatisfied with her skills, Monica Dream looked at the little rascal with slight displeasure and generously said, "Little rascal, don't be so discontented. Let's not talk about anything else. If the girl wants spiritual energy, I'll snatch it from the senior brother. If she wants elixirs, I'll take them from the fourth junior brother. As for cultivation techniques, the sect has plenty. You don't need to worry about this girl being neglected." Simon Lee chuckled and placed a wine jar in front of Monica Dream, flattering her as he said, "All right then, I'll leave my little sister in your care, senior." Gourd Immortal stared at the wine jar, just about to snatch it, but Monica Dream quickly put it away and kindly said, Good boy, you're very obedient." Gourd Immortal glared angrily at Simon Lee, who shrugged and said, "A high-ranking official far away is no match for a minor official nearby." Ryan Knight laughed heartily, paying no mind. Monica Dream ignored them and directly led Sophia Lee away. Seeing the two men's wolf-like gazes, Simon Lee cleared his throat and said, "The master is in a good mood, so perhaps you might still get some wine. However, you'll need to buy it with spirit stones. If you're thinking of freeloading, I'm afraid you won't even get a drop." At the mention of wine, the two quickly caught on. They understood that the implication was to please the girl who bought the wine, and they'd still have wine to drink. With that, Simon Lee handed them a jar of wine and pitifully said, "I've donated all the wine I have on me. If you want more, it depends on your abilities." As he spoke, Simon Lee muttered pitifully, "Sigh, I don't know how long it'll take for me to get another jar." His tone was truly mournful, though he thought to himself about the days ahead. He wondered if Gourd Immortal and Ryan Knight would still be laughing when their master's grim expression appeared. Deep down, he felt a bit sorry for the two. Back home, Simon Lee proudly recounted the earlier events. Clara Ocean laughed so hard she lost all composure. The disciples of Heavenly Spirit Peak seemed to be quite interesting and amusing. Stroking her chin with a mature air, Clara Ocean said, Let's set up a stall for a while and torment those two alcoholics. When I have some free time, I'll visit the Heavenly Epic sect. Heavenly Spirit Peak seems rather entertaining." Seeing Clara Ocean's curious and intrigued expression, a thought flashed through Simon Lee's mind: curiosity killed the cat. He seriously asked, "Little girl, curiosity killed the cat. I wonder if it could harm a nine-tailed fox like you." Clara Ocean smacked him on the head and angrily said, "I don't know about others, but I've heard cats have 9 lives. Since I have 9 tails, I might survive too. However, I won't be more curious than a cat." Unfortunately, this time Simon Lee's words were prophetic. Although the fox wasn't killed, she came very close. Driven by curiosity, Clara Ocean became vaguely interested in the two alcoholics. Thus, the next day, she leisurely set up her stall as usual, displaying 2 jars of monkey wine, sipping and sunbathing with interest. Her patience paid off as the 2 alcoholics, drawn by the aroma of wine, arrived with drooling faces, staring at Clara Ocean with lecherous grins, begging for wine. Clara Ocean unceremoniously stretched out her hand and angrily said, "Hand over spirit stones or treasures in exchange. If it's worthless junk, get lost." Ryan Knight, unafraid of death, corrected her, "You're a girl, you can't refer to yourself as, this young master." Clara Ocean retorted indignantly, "I'll call myself whatever I want. What can you do about it?" Gord Immortal, still drooling, chimed in, "Exactly, if she wants to call herself that, she can. What does it have to do with you?" Ryan Knight grumbled in dissatisfaction, Hey, master, boundaries, boundaries." Gord Immortal cheerfully replied with a single sentence that made Clara Ocean spit out her drink, "Without fine wine, there are no boundaries." Pfft. Clara Ocean spat out a mouthful of wine, laughing heartily. Seeing Gord Immortal's adorable demeanor instantly lifted her spirits. Meanwhile, Simon Lee stood nearby, his head full of black lines, collecting herbs while watching the 2 powerful figures act ridiculously. In high spirits, Clara Ocean instructed Simon Lee to tidy up before happily heading to Transcendence residence with the other 3. The place was magnificent, rivaling the main halls of smaller sections. Clara Ocean joyfully picked a seat near the window. The waiter, familiar with Clara Ocean's dining habits, rushed straight to the kitchen to make arrangements. Simon Lee also helped coordinate, ensuring the waiter prepared 4 cups of wine. As for the wine itself, the waiter didn't bother asking, knowing it must have come from the alchemist Clara Ocean. Hearing that their patron had arrived, the chefs spared no effort in showcasing their culinary skills. Pleasing this young lady would surely result in generous compensation. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the table was laden with food. Clara Ocean cheerfully took out 3 jars of wine, eating and drinking heartily, occasionally sipping from her cup. Just as Gord Immortal reached for some food, Ryan Knight whispered to him, "Master, if you want to drink, don't compete with her for food." Gord Immortal wiped his sweat and quietly sipped his wine. The waiter, speechless at the scene, signaled the chefs to prepare 3 vegetarian dishes, placing them in front of Gord Immortal, Ryan Knight, and Simon Lee. He kindly remarked, "Apologies, dining with this young lady means only vegetarian food for you, all the meat dishes are hers." The 2 companions were deeply moved. Ryan Knight muttered, "Master, don't get emotional, we'll be paying later." Gord Immortal slapped Ryan Knight on the head and unreservedly said, "Worth it. Totally worth it." He turned to see Clara Ocean narrowing her eyes at him and gave a sheepish smile. While they were enjoying their meal, an untimely and angry voice interrupted. A rough male voice filled with indignation shouted, "Waiter, what are you doing? We arrived first, and the dishes downstairs were already served to us." Clara Ocean glanced in the direction of the voice, gathering the food on her table protectively like a small animal guarding its hoard. Simon Lee was about to step forward to explain but was stopped by Clara Ocean stepping on his foot. Seeing Simon Lee's puzzled expression, Clara Ocean jerked her chin toward the 2 freeloaders, clearly indicating they should handle it. Ryan Knight and Gord Immortal exchanged glances. Reluctantly, Ryan Knight got up to deal with the situation. Following the waiter to the other party's private room, Ryan Knight saw the man who had spoken earlier and, without a word, gave him a beating. The reason was simple: if he delayed any longer, the old man would have drunk all the wine, and that was infuriating. After the beating, Ryan Knight rudely snatched the man's storage pouch, demanded all his snacks, and then returned to Clara Ocean's table in a better mood. Seeing the 3 now empty wine jars, he clenched his teeth, tempted to go back and beat the unlucky man again. Clara Ocean casually asked, "What did you do to him?" Ryan Knight shrugged indifferently, gave him a beating and took all his spirit stones. Clara Ocean and Simon Lee were left speechless. Seeing their expressions, Ryan Knight added, sigh, just a junior from the sect. The corners of Clara Ocean and Simon Lee's mouths twitched. Ryan Knight continued, it's fine. Your junior sister isn't someone to be bullied. Anyone who dares to mess with a disciple of Heavenly Spirit Peak is asking for trouble. Clara Ocean cooperatively tossed him another jar of wine and asked, why? Ryan Knight spoke responsibly, the Peak Master of Heavenly Spirit Peak is that old man you saw. He has 5 disciples, and only that young girl as his grand disciple. The key point is, the disciples of Heavenly Spirit Peak are the most defiant lineage in the sect. And my senior sister is considered the most defiant among us. Clara Ocean shrugged helplessly and replied seriously, just wait. When I want to show off, I'll be the most defiant one, okay? She said this casually, but Gord Immortal and Ryan Knight's eyes suddenly lit up. However, Gord Immortal thought to himself, the wish to drink monkey wine daily is truly easy to fulfill. Meanwhile, Ryan Knight pondered, is luring this little girl to the mountain really not an issue? Simon Lee, on the other hand, wondered, if they're all going up the mountain, can I tag along too? Returning home, Clara Ocean had already forgotten the words spoken at Transcendence residence. She casually grabbed a stuffed animal made from animal skin and obediently went to sleep. Upon waking, she took out her alchemy furnace, and in just 3 short hours, the obtained medicinal materials were completely refined. In the following days, the 2 drunkards idly visited Clara Ocean's stall daily, acting foolishly, determined to make the young girl happy so they could have their daily share of wine. Clara Ocean also gained a deeper understanding of the famous saying from the old drunkard, without fine wine, there is no bottom line. These 2 shameless individuals were willing to do anything for a sip of wine, earning Clara Ocean's repeated disdain. However, when they set foot in Transcendence residence, they behaved obediently like little puppies. This master-disciple pair was nothing more than 2 drunkards. In Sky Monkey City, Clara Ocean's stall was always deserted. The reason was none other than these 2 troublemakers disrupting things. Business was hard to improve because their mere presence and oppressive aura were enough to scare away any unreliable customers. Hashtag Chapter 37, the 37th episode. Testing the master. The little devil Clara Ocean finally exploded in anger at the drunken antics of the 2. She slammed the table and furiously asked, what exactly do you 2 want? My business is about to be ruined because of you. Ryan Knight grinned ingratiatingly and said, how about you come with us to the mountain for some fun? Clara Ocean, dissatisfied, retorted, are you guys trying to lure children? Each of you is dirt poor. If I follow you, I'll basically be a walking food supply, won't I? No way. Ryan Knight thought for a moment and began explaining to Clara Ocean, joining the sect has many benefits. Every month, you'll receive spirit stones based on your rank. You can also set up your stall within the sect, and all kinds of income can be converted into contributions to exchange for good things from the sect. Clara Ocean yawned lazily and sarcastically replied, let me know if there's anything you have that interests me. But, there aren't many things that catch my eye anyway. The 2 great figures both put on innocent expressions. In the astonished gazes of the 2 people, a mouse ran to Clara Ocean's stall, circled it a few times, and squeaked a few times. Clara Ocean, intrigued, casually took out a pill and rewarded the mouse, then calmly said to Simon Lee, pack up, pack up. Clara Ocean turned to look, Simon Lee had already packed up his stall. Ryan Knight, surprised, asked Simon Lee, kid, you're really quick at packing up your stall. Simon Lee naturally replied, the master is directionally challenged. She wants to leave the city, so of course, I have to lead the way. The 2 people around them fell silent, staring at Clara Ocean. They finally understood this girl's weakness. However, this weakness seemed a bit unreliable, just like how she would go berserk when fighting, truly puzzling. Ryan Knight and Gord Immortal initially planned to leave the city together to see the excitement. However, Simon Lee slowly said, the two of you have just managed to earn a bit of goodwill, do you want to lose it already? The two immediately deflated, pitifully standing behind them to watch. The group left the city once more. This time, it was Eighth Uncle who came to visit. Seeing Clara Ocean, Eighth Uncle angrily said, "Are those two brats still chasing after you?" Clara Ocean thought of the fox before her, who was already over 10,000 years old, and irritably said, "Old man, they're not chasing me to harm me, they're trying to lure me to the heavenly epic sect, okay?" Eighth Uncle retorted indignantly, Hey, little girl, where do you see that your uncle is old?" Clara Ocean pouted, sneering, "Humph, you're already over 10,000 years old. If that's not old, what is? You're so old your teeth must be falling out." Eighth Uncle fell silent, weakly countering, Hey, little girl, your lifespan is also measured in tens of thousands of years, isn't it? Clara Ocean tilted her head to the sky at a 45-degree angle and said, "I'm not even 10 years old this year." Eighth Uncle gave up arguing with this little rascal. Clara Ocean directly tossed a pile of bottles and jars to Eighth Uncle, who in turn exchanged them for another pile of empty bottles and jars. After the transaction, Eighth Uncle finally said, "So, what's your decision? Are you going or not? However, I must remind you, strictly speaking, you don't even count as human. If you develop feelings for those humans, the consequences of punishment are beyond our ability to predict." Clara Ocean scratched her head and asked, "Then what if I develop feelings for a demon clan member?" Eighth Uncle spread his hands, irresponsibly replying, "Well, probably about the same. Your ideal match should be a half-demon like yourself." Clara Ocean squinted her eyes, imagining creatures with bull heads and human bodies, horse heads and human bodies, human heads and horse bodies, or even. Just the thought of it made Clara Ocean crouch in the bushes nearby, retching uncontrollably. This was far too much against her sense of aesthetics. Watching Clara Ocean vomit violently, Eighth Uncle pursed his lips, expressing both sympathy and helplessness toward her. After finishing, Clara Ocean grabbed Eighth Uncle's tail to wipe her mouth, then yanked it hard, using the momentum to climb onto his head, proceeding to give him a good beating. Eighth Uncle could only endure helplessly. He thought to himself, "I just wanted to warn this little girl a bit, so why is she taking revenge on me? This is too much. I'm her elder, after all." After venting her anger, Clara Ocean stormed back to Thousand Epic City. The residents of Thousand Epic City, seeing the little alchemist with a face full of fury, wisely kept their distance. Only Simon Lee dared to approach, timidly asking, "Where are you going?" Clara Ocean angrily spat out 2 words, "To eat." The two of them stormed off to the Transcendence residence. Simon Lee kept winking at the waiter. The waiter, being sharp, noticed Clara Ocean's foul mood and quickly instructed the kitchen to prepare the dishes. Thinking it over, the waiter specifically reminded, "Miss seems to be in a bad mood today, be extra careful with the food." Saying this, he casually grabbed a cooked meat dish and a bowl of wine, bringing them over quickly. The kitchen didn't dare delay either, clanging and bustling about. Within 100 breaths, Clara Ocean's table was overflowing with food. Watching Clara Ocean vent her anger through eating, those around who initially wanted to speak fell silent. The little girl before them looked as if she wanted to eat someone alive. She even brought out some monkey wine, gulping it down without hesitation. Clara Ocean was truly furious today, angrily recalling Eighth Uncle's words as she ate and drank with clenched teeth. 2 regulars who often came to scrounge for wine saw the little girl's intimidating aura and didn't dare approach. They strongly suspected that anyone daring to fight her for food at this moment would definitely get bitten. Simon Lee stood dumbfounded, but his instincts told him not to let Clara Ocean get drunk, as that would only make things worse. He cautiously said, Little girl, don't drink too much, okay?" Clara Ocean angrily shouted, "I'm in a bad mood. Today, I must drink until I'm drunk." With that, she took another swig of wine. Her eyes were already a bit hazy, yet she kept drinking gulp after gulp. Everyone could see that this little girl was in an extremely foul mood, worse than ever before. The fox spirit in Clara Ocean's mind helplessly sighed, "Hey, hey, hey, aren't you afraid I'll cause trouble if you get drunk?" Clara Ocean's soul, half-conscious, muttered, "One drunken stupor to forget the world." The other spirits around her looked at this drunken ghost with exasperated expressions. The fox spirit yawned and said, "Let's just go to sleep. It's probably not too dangerous." The spirits dispersed, each finding their own amusement. And so, Simon Lee's worries were in vain. Clara Ocean, full and satisfied, let out a loud yawn before collapsing onto the table, falling into a deep sleep. The onlookers, who had been watching the commotion, fell silent. What left them even more speechless was when Gord Immortal, who had been observing for a while, shamelessly rushed to the table, grabbed the jug of wine Clara Ocean had been drinking from, and guzzled down the remaining contents without any regard for appearances. Ryan Knight immediately covered his face, unable to bear the embarrassment of watching his master. It was too humiliating, far too humiliating. And just like that, everyone around stood with their mouths agape in astonishment. Simon Lee reluctantly carried Clara Ocean back to her house. The next afternoon, when Clara Ocean rubbed her eyes and woke up, she found herself lying in bed. Looking to the side, she saw Simon Lee slumped over the table, nodding off. Clara Ocean scratched her head and said helplessly, "Hey, if you want to sleep, go home and sleep. What are you doing nodding off here?" Three dots seemed to appear above Simon Lee's head as he responded helplessly, "You were drunk. I was worried something might happen to you, so I stayed to keep an eye on you." Clara Ocean gave an embarrassed smile, thought for a moment, and then said, "It's boring here. How about, we go to the Heavenly Epic sect for a visit? Anyway, the business here has already been ruined by those two freeloaders." Simon Lee simply smiled. He knew he might end up being an extra burden. Clara Ocean waved her hand and said to Simon Lee, "You talk to those two and figure out a way to include me. This opportunity is rare." Simon Lee grinned sheepishly and nodded. He knew, without a doubt, that he was going to be the extra baggage. After confirming once again that Clara Ocean was truly fine, Simon Lee happily ran off to find the Gord Immortal and negotiate with them. When Simon Lee arrived, the two powerful figures greeted him warmly. Ryan Knight spoke first, "So, the little girl's all right?" Simon Lee rolled his eyes and said, "She's fine now, in much better spirits. She wants to visit the Heavenly Epic sect. Of course, the condition is that I get included too." Hearing this, the Gord Immortal immediately slapped the table and said, "Deal. She can choose whose disciple she wants to be with just one word." Simon Lee stuck out his tongue, gaining an even deeper understanding of how shameless these two could be. As he had suspected before, these two would do anything, negotiate anything, all for good wine. When Simon Lee returned to Clara Ocean's house, seeing her surprised expression, he sighed helplessly and said, "Yeah, the limits of those two seniors are even lower than we imagined. I only said one sentence, and they agreed very enthusiastically." Clara Ocean spat out the tea she was drinking right into Simon Lee's face. Cough, cough. It seems they really have no limits. Why do they seem like spirit beasts begging for food? Simon Lee laughed unrestrainedly, not caring about appearances, as he also thought the Gord Immortal and his companion were indeed a bit shameless. These days, when did major sects start recruiting disciples by flattering them instead of holding rigorous selections? They were truly tarnishing the reputation of a great sect. What Simon Lee didn't know was that as soon as he left, the Gord Immortal immediately returned to the sect to request inner disciple tokens from the sect master, and this time, he requested two. Thus, when they reappeared in front of Ryan Knight cheerfully said, "Girl, come and be my disciple. My mountain peak is quiet, and besides me, there are only two spirit beasts under my command." Clara Ocean pouted and said, "If I'm not mistaken, the other peaks probably don't have anyone either." If Sophia can become the third generation's senior disciple, it shows that the other peaks also only have one person in their spirit beasts, right? Ryan Knight thought for a moment, rolled his eyes, and furiously refuted, who says so? The eldest peak master is a weapon refiner. If you go to her place, you'll hear the constant clanging of metal every day and won't get any peace. Hashtag chapter 38, the 38th episode, the Monkey Clan learns to brew wine. Clara Ocean spoke in a low tone. Oh, if it's too troublesome, just kick him down the mountain, or knock him out and throw him to someone else. Ryan Knight grimaced and continued, second senior brother is a martial arts fanatic, you can't see him around all day. Clara Ocean complimented, look, is there any quiet place yet? Ryan Knight helplessly added, fourth senior brother is an alchemist, but his skills are not even half as good as yours. Clara Ocean cheerfully said, that useless guy, just ignore him. After thinking for a moment, she added, if you suggest that old man take him as a disciple, I bet that shameless guy would agree immediately. Ryan Knight reluctantly retorted, hey, little girl, do you really think that old guy is that shameless in your eyes? Clara Ocean rolled her eyes and replied, no, I should say, both of you are shameless, right? Who would stoop so low as to flatter a child for wine? Wine thieves, drunkards, scoundrels. Ryan Knight truly wanted to defend himself, but honestly, their actions these past few days had been somewhat unreliable. At this moment, Clara Ocean really wanted to turn into a fox and bite him a few times. Such bullying of a fox. Following him around, there might not even be enough wine for them every day. People like this, forget it. Then, as if sensing Clara Ocean's lingering hostility, Ryan Knight awkwardly chuckled a few times and began rambling on to promote himself. After all, he had a good impression of this little girl, although it was clear she didn't like him. Actually, he wasn't that addicted to wine, was he? Listening to Ryan Knight ramble on, Clara Ocean, who had just woken up, was so bored that she yawned repeatedly. In the end, she directly collapsed onto the table and fell sound asleep. Ryan Knight's words abruptly stopped, not because of anything else, but because Clara Ocean, who was sound asleep, suddenly slammed her hand on the chair beside her, turning it into fine powder. When Clara Ocean woke up again, she rubbed her stomach and said she was starving. So, the three of them headed to the Transcendence residence again. This time, Clara Ocean didn't bring out her monkey wine but instead asked the waiter to bring out every type of wine they had, one portion of each. The waiter, although surprised, complied with Clara Ocean's request and brought out a jar of each wine they sold. Ryan Knight asked in surprise, are you planning to drink yourself into oblivion today? Clara Ocean ignored him, poured a cup from each jar, and tasted them one by one. As expected, none of them were as good as monkey wine. After drinking a cup from each jar, Clara Ocean slurred, you handle the rest. In a few days, I'll tell you the price you'll have to pay for taking me as your disciple. After speaking, she cleared the food on the table and once again collapsed onto the table, snoring away. Simon Lee and Ryan Knight exchanged glances, and Simon Lee resignedly decided to carry the little girl back home. This time, Clara Ocean slept for 3 whole days before rubbing her eyes and waking up. This time, Simon Lee looked even worse, with dark circles under his eyes and barely opened lids, constantly bumping into the teacups. Clara Ocean smacked Simon Lee on the head and said helplessly, there's no need to guard the door. Why don't you go to sleep? Simon Lee replied helplessly, I was waiting for your instructions. Clara Ocean yawned and said, go, tell that wine thief I want 100 different wine recipes, along with the brewing methods and equipment. Once you're done, go to sleep. Simon Lee nodded and ran off to find Ryan Knight to negotiate. Meeting Ryan Knight, Simon Lee yawned and monotonously said, the master wants 100 different wine recipes, along with the brewing methods and all the equipment. Once you're done, you'll be her teacher. I'm off to sleep now, take your time. Ryan Knight nodded in acknowledgement and was about to run out when Simon Lee suggested, try asking at Transcendence residence. After saying that, he yawned again, went back home, and collapsed into sleep. At this moment, Clara Ocean, free at home, let out a few roars in beast language. A group of small mice immediately scurried over, standing on their hind legs respectfully as if bowing. Clara Ocean squinted her eyes in a smile and asked, "Do you know where the Monkey Clan's territory is?" The mice exchanged glances a few times and shook their heads, looking innocent. Clara Ocean sighed and asked, "Then, do you know anyone outside the city who knows the way?" This time, the mice nodded. One of them squeaked a few times, indicating that they knew Alexander King, who was familiar with the area. They themselves had lived in the city since birth and didn't know much about the roads beyond the city gates. Clara Ocean grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, writing a letter with the intention of saying she was going out for a few days and would return soon. The first letter was addressed to Simon Lee, ending with a mischievous face drawing. She anticipated that upon reading the letter, Simon Lee would likely head to the city gates to ask if she had left, as he was always skeptical of her sense of direction. True enough, 3 days later, when Simon Lee woke up and saw Clara Ocean's letter, the first thing he did was inquire with the gatekeepers. The guards confirmed that 3 days prior, the young alchemist had left the city, guided by a group of mice. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, Clara Ocean successfully exited the city, led by the small mice to a lair belonging to the wild boar king east of the city. After rewarding the mice, Clara Ocean seriously asked the wild boar king, "Hey, do you know how to get to the Monkey Clan's territory? I'm not familiar with the way." The wild boar king, unfazed, yawned and casually summoned a young leopard, who had yet to form a corps, to escort Clara Ocean to the Monkey Clan's leader, Monkey King. Upon hearing that the little troublemaker was coming, the Monkey King felt a mix of despair and annoyance. Wasn't she supposed to drink the wine herself? How come she's back so soon? Seeing Clara Ocean smiling brightly in front of him again, the Monkey King, with a face full of grievance, asked, "Little fox demon, you've already finished those 500 jars of wine so quickly?" Clara Ocean scratched her head and replied, "Not at all. This time, I came to learn how to brew wine. Last time, that guy who wanted my wine tried to trick me into going to the Heavenly Epic sect. Since I have some free time, I thought I'd make some wine myself and have that unlucky teacher of mine taste it. If it's not good enough, there's always that wine addict." The Monkey King broke into a cold sweat, feeling immense sympathy for his century-old wine addict acquaintance. He could sense that the poor guy's unlucky days were about to start. How bored must he have been to take on such a crazy apprentice? Did he even know what he was getting into? Noticing the Monkey King's reaction, Clara Ocean tugged on his beard and said, "Old man, you better not spill the beans. It took me forever to find someone so interesting and without boundaries. If you ruin my fun, don't blame me for turning against you." The Monkey King wiped his cold sweat, coughed awkwardly, and weakly replied, I wouldn't dare. Who would dare meddle in your affairs? If he doesn't know better, then that's his bad luck." Clara Ocean patted the Monkey King's head a few times and cheerfully said, "Good boy." The Monkey King, helpless but not daring to resist, reluctantly led Clara Ocean to the Monkey Clan's brewing site. There, he carefully taught her the techniques of crafting spirit wine. When Clara Ocean was about to leave, Henry Lake generously gifted her a flask of spirit-infused wine and carefully instructed, "Little fox spirit, this flask contains spirit-infused wine, aged for 1,000 years." Seeing Clara Ocean's puzzled expression, he explained in the simplest way, just a drop can elevate your wine by several grades. Even that old drunkard, Gord Immortal, would be knocked out for years with just a small cup. Clara Ocean suddenly brightened up and excitedly said, Hey, do you have any more? Give me a little extra, this will save me so much wine." Henry Lake broke into a cold sweat and weakly asked, "How much wine did that guy trick out of you? Are you planning to deal with him?" Clara Ocean scratched her head and replied, "Isn't it just a matter of sleeping it off for a few years? Recently, that guy drank nearly 50 jars of my wine, while I haven't even had 5. He's way too wasteful. Henry Lake kindly explained, it's not that simple. The spirit-infused wine I gave you, if consumed in excess, could make that old man drink himself to death. Even the junior you met last time wouldn't survive more than 3 drops. Clara Ocean broke into a cold sweat and began silently calculating the old drunkard's drinking capacity. Seeing her counting on her fingers, Henry Lake directly said, that old drunkard, measured against the wine I gave you, would need 10,000 jars just to sleep for 2 years. 100 jars would only make him slightly tipsy. Clara Ocean squinted her eyes, rubbed her chin, and said, I should really ask my martial uncle to discipline that shameless, insatiable drunkard. Otherwise, I truly can't handle it. Rarely amused, Henry Lake expressed his support. Hearing this, all the monkey spirits jumped up excitedly, raising their hands in agreement. In their eyes, that human was the ultimate enemy who needed to be expelled. All their wine had been consumed by that despicable human. As Clara Ocean departed, Henry Lake gave her 2 more flasks of spirit-infused wine and repeatedly reminded her that the longer the wine ferments, the richer its flavor becomes. Clara Ocean innocently replied, Aha, I'll use your wine to make a hypnotic potion. Henry Lake immediately deflated. Henry Lake generously gave Clara Ocean 200 jars of wine and cheerfully sent off this crazy fox alchemist. Afterward, he hurriedly sent messages to the great demon kings, warning them not to drink wine in front of this fox alchemist, as it could lead to dangerous consequences. The Alexander kings felt utterly helpless. On the way back, a young leopard escorted Clara Ocean to Sky Monkey City. Simon Lee had been waiting at the city gate for a long time. Seeing his young mistress return, he immediately ran over. His eyes were full of reproach as he led Clara Ocean home, scolding her along the way, Little girl, why did you leave without saying a word? And you didn't even get lost this time. Oh, by the way, Celestial Jade Master, the old drunkard you mentioned, has gathered everything you need and is waiting at his house, eagerly anticipating your return. Clara Ocean rubbed her stomach and said, let's go to Transcendence residence. I'm hungry. Call him over to eat with us later. Simon Lee chuckled and nodded in agreement before weakly asking, did you find anything good? Tell me, what treasures did you get? Hashtag Chapter 39, the 39th Return. Heavenly Epic Sect Clara Ocean chuckled and said, it's nothing, 3 jars of 1,000-year-old wine, 200 vats of monkey wine. Simon Lee felt deep sympathy for Henry Lake. This young lady was even more audacious in her plundering. At Transcendence residence, the waiter noticed the little alchemist arriving again and greeted her warmly. Clara Ocean glanced around and spotted Ryan Knight drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Seeing his disheveled appearance, both Clara Ocean and Simon Lee looked at him with disdain. Noticing the scattered wine jars on the table, Clara Ocean chuckled and said, looks like I'll be saving quite a bit of good wine today. Hearing Clara Ocean's voice, Ryan Knight immediately glared at the waiter, who quickly understood and cleaned up his table. Smiling broadly at the two, Ryan Knight smugly said, little girl, I doubt you'll save much of that fine wine. Clara Ocean slapped her forehead, pretending to be exasperated. The waiter brought over fresh wine cups and some new dishes. Clara Ocean took out 3 jars of monkey wine, and Ryan Knight eagerly poured the wine, curiously asking, so, how did it go? Clara Ocean extended her hand with a somber expression, clearly expecting something. Ryan Knight sheepishly handed over all the wine formulas from his sect, including those from Transcendence residents and even his masters, compiling them into a jade slip and giving it to Clara Ocean. After briefly reviewing it, Clara Ocean seemed quite satisfied. She casually remarked, all right, I'll be busy for the next few days. Once I'm done, I'll head up the mountain. After some thought, she added, as my disciple, you're responsible for testing the wine. At the very least, I can guarantee it's not poisonous. As soon as she finished speaking, Ryan Knight looked visibly aggrieved. while Simon Lee was secretly laughing. Meanwhile, inside Clara Ocean's consciousness, her fox spirit was rolling around, clutching its stomach in laughter. The fox spirit teased, "Human spirit, with words like that, who would dare drink it?" The human spirit replied nonchalantly, "It's fine. They're all capable of handling wine infused with spiritual energy, they won't die from it." If Ryan Knight had known about the conversation happening inside Clara Ocean's mind, he certainly wouldn't have dared to drink the wine she offered. Clara Ocean didn't drink much herself. After returning home, she summoned a group of small mice and instructed them to deliver a message to the Lake clan, asking them to come outside the city and bring plenty of containers. Demon beasts had their own communication methods, and by the next day, the message had reached the Lake clan. In just 2 days, the small mice returned with a report: the fox demons had arrived. Under Simon Lee's guidance, Clara Ocean successfully met with the demons of the Lake clan. This time, there was quite a turnout, 1 from the Fire Lake clan, 5 from the White Lake clan, and a number of their followers trailing behind. Seeing this grand assembly, Clara Ocean looked exasperated and asked, "Eighth uncle, what's the meaning of this?" Eighth uncle seriously said, "Isn't it about moving things? I brought quite a few people with me." Clara Ocean, feeling helpless, directly placed 100 jars of wine on the ground, along with some random bottles, then looked on with amusement as Eighth uncle appeared slightly embarrassed. Eighth uncle first handed the empty bottles to Clara Ocean. Several of the other uncles divided the items among themselves and stored them away. Eighth uncle then asked, "What are your plans after this?" Clara Ocean grinned and said, "I'm planning to visit the Heavenly Epic sect to stir things up a bit." The foxes around her began to sympathize with the sect. She continued, "I'll head up the mountain to learn how to brew wine. Once I'm sure the wine won't kill anyone and it tastes decent, I'll call you all to take over the glorious task of wine tasting. For now, it's all up to my poor, unfortunate master." A flock of black crows suddenly appeared above the foxes' heads, dropping a cloud of dark dots as they flew by. At this point, the foxes felt immense pity for the unlucky individual who had been chosen as a master by this crazy fox alchemist. Seeing their expressions, Clara Ocean was dissatisfied and said, "Hey, hey, hey. What kind of attitude is that? I'm an alchemist, it's not like my wine will kill them. Besides, they're all people who consume spirit wine. With such good ingredients, it would be a waste not to use them." The foxes grew even more exasperated. Soon after, the foxes were sent off, and Clara Ocean happily went to find Ryan Knight. The 3 of them rode on Little Wing and headed back to the Heavenly Epic sect. Little Wing was a lightning eagle that Ryan Knight had tricked into joining them. It flew at an incredible speed and was very comfortable to ride on. For this reason, Clara Ocean straightforwardly declared to Ryan Knight, "This little eagle is mine from now on. This time, I won't lose it." Little Wing, upon hearing this, really wanted to throw the fox demon off its back. However, it didn't dare to. As a spirit beast, it knew that on the entire Azure Lamb continent, and even on the whole Morsula star, there wasn't a single spirit beast unaware of the infamous crazy fox alchemist. Of course, Clara Ocean herself was still oblivious to this reputation. The group flew directly to Heavenly Spirit Peak. Gord Immortal had already anticipated Clara Ocean's arrival today, so all the disciples, including Sophia Lee, were waiting at Heavenly Spirit Peak to greet the 2 new junior disciples. After everyone met, Clara Ocean scanned the crowd and immediately focused her gaze on a man. Ryan Knight, noticing Clara Ocean's interest in the man, cleared his throat and took on the role of introducing him. Pointing to the tall and rugged man, he said, "This is your second martial uncle, Mark Campbell. He's a martial arts fanatic." Clara Ocean didn't hold back and mockingly said, "You guys really ruined this man's life. Still, it's surprising that someone like him managed to cultivate to the late stage of the out-of-body realm without dying. That's quite an achievement." Her remarks left everyone around them in stunned silence. Mark Campbell, clearly displeased, retorted, "What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying I've disappointed you?" Clara Ocean nodded and replied, very disappointed. "Your 5 elements aptitude is fundamentally unbalanced. The fact that you managed to cultivate the unfettered scroll to the out-of-body stage without dying, shouldn't that be considered a miracle? However, it seems your unfettered scroll isn't very effective." Mark Campbell, puzzled, asked, "How do you know my cultivation level?" Clara Ocean shrugged nonchalantly and said, "Sorry, but I also cultivate the unfettered scroll. Moreover, I have the complete version. If you're interested, we can trade for something I find valuable. Oh, and if you don't want to be stuck at this stage forever, you'd better listen to me. There's still hope for you." Mark Campbell, now excited, asked, "What do you want in exchange for the complete version?" Clara Ocean reluctantly looked at this guy, nudging Ryan Knight as she said, "Hey, is this guy's brain broken or something? He can't even understand the main point." Everyone around was very silent. Mark Campbell asked with confusion, "What did I misunderstand?" Clara Ocean thought for a moment and then said, "First of all, you need to consider not the entire issue but the matter of the legendary spirit replenishing pill." Mark Campbell excitedly asked, "Do you have the spirit replenishing pill?" Clara Ocean covered her face, completely speechless. "Uncle, what are you thinking? I don't have it. However, I can step in to find the materials, which should be faster than you. But I don't know the pill recipe." In other words, if you have the recipe, then you can make the pill. Correspondingly, the condition is, whether I'm still in the sect or not, you, this nascent soul ancestor, must watch over my people. If anything happens to them, you must take full responsibility. Mark Campbell chuckled honestly and said, "Then you're at a big loss here. I specialize in talismans and formations. If I load them up with a bunch of talismans, their safety is guaranteed. I'll even give them some formations. I guess they won't lose out much. I agree to this condition. I also have the recipe, but I'm missing a few materials." Clara Ocean's evaluation of this second martial uncle was that he was a big, clueless fool. She said helplessly, "Why don't you take out everything you have so I can see what's missing? For the things you lack, just pay me according to the market price." Watching the two negotiating, Ryan Knight weakly said, "Little girl, are you losing out here?" Clara Ocean gave Ryan Knight a sidelong glance before saying, "It's rare for this fool to be so easy to trick. Can you not interfere?" Everyone around was looking at Mark Campbell with strange expressions. Mark Campbell scratched his head and said, "No, little girl, you're the one losing out." Clara Ocean shook her head and said, "I didn't set a time limit. As long as you don't ascend, you'll keep an eye on my juniors for me. Besides, life here is good. I don't even know how many juniors I'll recruit in the future. You'll be busy." This martial arts fanatic forgot to think about the days ahead. "Also, after I change your constitution, if you're not too stupid, ascending won't even be a problem, okay?" Everyone around was completely stunned into silence. Clara Ocean extended her hand calmly and said, "Oh, right. Since I'm calling you martial uncle, there's a customary gift. Since you're into formations and talismans, I won't ask for much, 3 top-grade talismans per person, 1 advanced formation, and 1 spirit-gathering formation per person." Mark Campbell asked bitterly, "Why 3 gifts?" Clara Ocean seriously counted on her fingers, 1 for Sophia Lee, 1 for Simon Lee, and 1 for me. "Oh, right, I want 4 talismans for myself." Mark Campbell's face grew even more bitter. He unhappily said, that little girl's share was already taken by her master. Clara Ocean tilted her head back at a 45-degree angle, looking at the sky in frustration. "I don't care. I told you to give it, so give it. Don't forget, you still need my help. Are you refusing?" Mark Campbell lowered his head, rummaging through his storage pouch to find talismans and formation tools, muttering to himself, "Tisk, even unluckier than junior sister." Luckily, I always stock up, otherwise, I'd lose face today. He handed the items to Clara Ocean. She casually glanced at them before tossing them to Simon Lee, instructing him to handle it, while swapping her own formation tools with Mark Campbell's talismans. Simon Lee, even more straightforward, handed all the talismans to Sophia Lee, leaving Mark Campbell on the verge of tears. Sophia Lee, annoyed, picked through the talismans, selecting a few defensive ones to give back to Simon Lee. She remarked, "Why give them all to me? Even in the sect, you might be bullied at times. These can save your life." Simon Lee pointed at Ryan Knight, complaining, "Wasn't it said that no one dares to mess with disciples of the Heavenly Spirit Peak?" Sophia Lee helplessly replied, "Do you think you're some pampered young master? That's just a saying. If you lack skills, go call the master and pretend nothing happened." Hearing this, Simon Lee felt something was off and asked, dissatisfied, Has anyone bullied you on the mountain?" Sophia Lee nodded, "Master has already avenged me." After speaking, the Lee siblings turned to Clara Ocean. Without hesitation, Clara Ocean said, "Simple. Old drunkard, forget about this month's wine. If you can't even protect a little girl, you should focus on training your martial arts." Thahaha. Monica Dream and Ryan Knight finally couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. The others around shook their heads in silence, looking at their master with pity-filled eyes. By now, Gord Immortal's face was full of anger, his wine for a whole month. Weakly, Gord Immortal asked, "How many jars are we talking about for the month?" Clara Ocean thought for a moment and replied, 5 jars a month. "As for the wine I brew in the future, you can drink it freely. However, based on your performance, I'll be treating others, but for this month, it's over." Gord Immortal immediately rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight. Clara Ocean, irritated, said, "If you go first, you'll get welfare. 3 portions, that's it." The old man rummaged through his room for a while before finally pulling out 3 sets of clothes. Clara Ocean glanced at them and tossed them to Sophia Lee. It seemed pointless to throw them to Simon Lee. Sophia Lee straightforwardly said, "Brother, that is for men." Simon Lee awkwardly withdrew his hand. Ryan Knight carefully introduced Gord Immortal, real name Patrick Mountain, also known as Old Wine Demon. This man is addicted to alcohol as if it were his lifeline, regarded as the wine immortal, proficient in fire and water magic. His biggest flaw is his addiction to alcohol and his tendency to side with his own people. Due to his exceptional talent in cultivation, with the potential to break through to the body integration stage, no one at Heavenly Spirit Peak dares to provoke him. After Ryan Knight's introduction, Clara Ocean remarked, "You are a water-fire dual-element user. No wonder it's so challenging. If you gather enough ice crystal fruits and fire blaze fruits within 3 months, I might be able to help you concoct a special auxiliary pill. Pen and paper." With that, Clara Ocean looked at Ryan Knight with a disdainful expression. Simon Lee quickly brought out pen and paper. Clara Ocean wrote down a list and handed it to Old Wine Demon, casually tossing him a jar of wine. Patrick Mountain proudly said, "Young lady, don't underestimate these artifacts. Each one can withstand a strike from a body integration stage cultivator. They're good stuff, aren't they?" Clara Ocean sneered, ignoring him, and bluntly criticized, "What junk. Good enough to fool children." The 6 adults felt extremely awkward. Saying that, do you consider yourself a child? Moreover, these artifacts are considered junk. Then what qualifies as good stuff? What they didn't know was that, as a fox spirit, Clara Ocean genuinely didn't think much of these items. Compared to her own robust physique, a strike from a body integration stage cultivator. Even a tribulation stage master striking several times wouldn't faze her. This is precisely the disparity between humans and spirits, a vast difference. Ryan Knight's lips twitched as he continued, pointing to a middle-aged man with an imposing presence, "This is my senior brother, Andrew Green, also known as True Person of Pure Spirit. He's the leader of our peak. His bad habits include siding with his family and drinking excessively, though he can handle his liquor. Senior brother is usually very strict and likes to intimidate people. Currently, he's at the late nascent soul stage, specializing in fire-based magic and is a seasoned artifact refiner. As soon as Ryan Knight finished speaking, everyone turned to Clara Ocean, waiting for her evaluation. She didn't disappoint, coldly commenting, "His Tao heart is unstable, he should aim to overcome his tribulation sooner." Everyone burst into laughter, seemingly no longer feeling embarrassed. Clara Ocean once again realized that having no boundaries was one of Heavenly Spirit Peak's traditions. Clara Ocean extended her hand, signaling for a greeting gift. Andrew Green looked a bit awkward. The gifts their master provided were already dismissed, surely his would also be discarded. Still, he gritted his teeth and poured out a pile of artifacts, generously saying, "All right, pick whatever you like." Everyone broke into a cold sweat. How much had their senior brother been pushed? Sigh. Clara Ocean casually squatted down to inspect the items, taking a set of needle-type artifacts for herself. She selected a set of flying daggers and 2 short blades for Sophia Lee. Under Clara Ocean's intimidating gaze, Simon Lee timidly took a shield and a helmet, temporarily equipping himself. When Simon Lee seemed to want to give the items away, Clara Ocean seriously told Sophia Lee, "Brother's strength is only a so-so, he won't be able to use these. You should let him keep them." The surroundings fell into extreme silence. Sophia Lee, with tears in her eyes, looked at Clara Ocean. To outsiders, it seemed like she was deeply moved and grateful. In reality, Clara Ocean knew it was a plea for her to keep Simon Lee in line. Clara Ocean shook her head, slapped Simon Lee on the head, and said angrily, "What the heck are you doing? Throw everything away, if you die, don't expect me to take care of your little sister." Everyone burst into laughter. Sophia Lee, rarely on the same side as Clara Ocean, joined her, both glaring furiously at Simon Lee. At this moment, Ryan Knight, standing nearby, pointed at the other man and chuckled, "This is your 4th martial uncle, Kevin Lee. He's skilled in alchemy, a late-stage nascent soul alchemist. However, his skills don't compare to yours, so I guess you don't need to worry about giving him a formal greeting." Clara Ocean pouted and bluntly said 2 words that could make someone jump off a building, "Useless." Kevin Lee, teary-eyed, looked at Clara Ocean with a pleading expression. Clara Ocean immediately pulled Ryan Knight as a shield. Ryan Knight shook his head and weakly said, "Senior brother, he's my disciple." Kevin Lee cheerfully replied, "Can I be your disciple's disciple? As long as he's willing to teach me alchemy." Everyone fell silent. Patrick Mountain, on the other hand, became furious and smacked Kevin Lee on the head dozens of times. While hitting him, Patrick Mountain angrily yelled, "You brat, you're her martial uncle. Can't you have some dignity?" Kevin Lee honestly replied, "No,